welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil. And welcome to Season 7 of the Shanaplan, Leaf fans.
Woohoo!
It's just so exciting to have hockey to watch every night, and hockey fans on both the U.S. and in both the U.S. and Canada obviously are super, super pumped because the NHL had record-breaking TV ratings on opening night. So that is huge.
Yeah. And probably a little bit more on the Canadian side, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, we always bump things up for them, right?
Yeah. But we also had a huge accomplishment just recently with our listener numbers, and we just got our 1,500th download of the podcast.
Yay!
So, yay! And the person who was our 1,500th was from France, which we've never actually had someone from France. That we know of anyways, that has listened, but that's great. Shout out to that listener. And we'd love to hear from you and any of our listeners to let us know how you found out about us and about any feedback you have about our show. You can DM us on social media, or our handle is at LTL1917, or you can email us at ladiestalkingleafs@gmail.com. And of course, we appreciate everyone who's made the time to download and listen to our show.
Yes, thank you so much. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of today's show, we want to talk a little bit about opening night and how we celebrated the return of the NHL. It was like it's almost like a national holiday. This is the first home opener that Chris and I haven't watched together in 27 years. So that part was sad.
I was kind of down.
Yeah. But we made the best of it, and the Leafs and Habs did not disappoint. So for me, it was kind of different because normally I like to take, my kids to a game for their birthday, and I feel pretty fortunate that I'm able to do that. But this year, my daughter's birthday basically fell right around the Leafs Habs games, and so what she wanted to do was have her kind of game night birthday. So we normally like to have poutine when we're at the game. So we ordered that. Of course, I put some of my brand new Leaf gear on to watch the game. And we just kind of made a little bit of a night of it as a family. So and I made some cupcakes, and so we had that. That's not typically what I would have at the game. But
they don't have cupcakes. Probably will next time, maybe.
Yeah, and you never know. Like they could end up having. They always have new and different things there at Scotiabank. So. Yeah. A cupcakery, that might be a nice addition.
Nice
anyway,
they don't really have anything sweet there.
No,
except for
the
much. What's it called? Those
the funnel cake fries. Yeah. They're kind of yummy, but you can't have that every game anyway. But so that's kind of what we did, and we just did that thing like as a family thing, and we all really enjoyed it. It was great. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, so I'm by myself here, so I just basically ordered pizza and wings. I listened to some pregame talk to get into it, and to just get into like all the players and what they were saying, listen to the interviews. And then when the game started, I even stood for the national anthem, pretending I was there.
Yeah.
But and that's it. And obviously I had my Leaf gear on, and you make the best of it, basically. It's better to have it to watch than not have it at all.
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
So let's get on with what we're going to talk about on this episode. So basically, we're going to do a review of the game so far. So we're recording this on Sunday, January 16th. So we will cover the 3 games that we've had, which is the Habs and the 2 versus the Senators. We're also going to review what's upcoming for the Blue and White in the next couple of weeks. It's quite a fast and frenzied schedule.
Yeah.
And once again, we had the opportunity to be on a call with Toronto Maple Leafs President Brendan Shanahan, and we're going to give you our little bit of insider information from this call. So stay tuned for that. Now, without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
Okay, so we're going to review the first 3 games of the season. So we're basically just going to first talk about who or what stood out from the games good or bad when it comes to the overall team play, whether it be the defensive play or the forward line combinations or the goaltending, which Sil and I actually got all my Freddie love out of me last night after texting with Sil. So I've kind of condensed that a little bit for today. Anyhow, for the coaching, it was interesting. I'll start first just with a comment, just how he's using the fourth line. I don't know. I just thought for Wayne Simmons, he had an average ice time between 7 minutes, 30 seconds to 10:25. The last 2 games he's played around 10 minutes, and he's getting the power play time a little bit extra. But so that's actually good, even though I didn't really notice the increase that much, because the first game, other than the fight that he had, which was fantastic, he really didn't play much. I just think that he could have played him a little bit more, or even played that fourth line more. And even with Spezza, which is something else now that with the news today that we got, but I'll get into what I actually wanted to say. He only played 6 minutes, between 6 minutes 57 seconds to 8 minutes on the high side, and his he was mainly used also too on the PK on the draw, where this was amazing stat. Actually, he got 18 wins and 5 losses on the draw. So he's 78% on face-off percent over the 3 games. But yeah, I don't know. I know Sheldon Keefe, he seems to like to use the 3 lines more so than all to distribute it. But I just think he can use them a little bit more. I don't know. I'd like to see it, but I don't know. And
well, I guess it depends on the game situations. I don't know. Yeah. I think once things settle down, there will be more of a regular slot for that line. It's just right now things are pretty sloppy, and I would say that's probably true across the board. And so there's probably a little bit more, especially teams with stupid penalties, miscommunications, things like that. So when you have a lot of specialty team time on one side or the other, I think that it's hard to get that true. Game flow where you're going to get that fourth line on in a more regular fashion. You know what I mean? Yeah, so at least they're able to use some of the guys that play on the fourth line in those key situations also. So
yeah.
But that's definitely going to affect the way they're used, because especially when you're, if you're getting, on the PK side more, then you're in the need of more offense a little more urgently. So therefore, you're going to want to play your more offensive players more often, which is, kind of what happened with Matthews and Marner in that line, particularly those 2 players, seeing upwards of 20 minutes. So
they were actually played. There was Marner one night played 25 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
So that was
both of them
insane.
Actually. So
they can't
do that all the time.
Yeah,
and I don't think that's necessarily going to be their sweet spot as far as being able to, get the most out of them either. So
and on the forward line combinations overall, I think they're pretty good. it's still only 3 games. I don't know, everybody until the third game or second game versus the Sens, everybody was kind of saying, Jumbo Joe needs to get off that line sort of thing, right? But I don't know. Last night they all scored, and Marner had the best night with the 3 points versus the Senators. So in the 3-2 win. So I think they did switch Hyman a little bit in that horrible game on the Friday night. They did put Hyman up there, even on the first game versus the Habs. I think they took Thornton, they moved him down, and they put Hyman in there with Marner and Matthews. So I think that's just going to continue all the time. And that third line with Kerfoot, I think, is really kind of gelling a little bit. You don't notice them, which is good, because it's supposed to be a checking line. You don't really they're showing consistency, and I think obviously it helps with Hyman being there.
Well, right, and I think it shows when it counts,
Yeah. Yeah.
when they're, they get the play and they are able to get it set up and cycled in the offensive zone. And I don't know, like I do see that Kerfoot took a step and he, I think, played really well in the play-in round. I definitely think he was a noticeable player, and I'm kind of feel like I'm seeing more of that from him again now. So
Yeah.
I think he's kind of finding his stride, and I think that those guys are going to do some pretty good things this year. It's a question as to, if they're looking at them as like a quote unquote more traditional kind of shutdown line. I don't know if that's what they're going to be, because I think they're going to be able to handle some physicality, but they're not the kind of line that's going to dish it out necessarily.
No.
But
not a grinding type.
No, they're not going to be a grinding type. But if they can, manage to, really forecheck, get in there, set something up in the offensive zone, and we can get the stops there so that we can get a proper a proper face off there and get our other lines set up, then I think that's what you're looking for from them.
Yeah. Yeah. And the defensive side, I think Muzzin and Hall, basically, you don't notice them at all. And also in most of the first game, they were maybe not so great, but the defense seemed totally out of sync even in the first two games. But you really didn't, they seemed pretty good. They seemed steady, just like, well, they've played with each other before, both of them. So they're good. They're a set pairing, let's just say. Now, the Riley and Brody, I mean, they're still working things out. I think they didn't have a good night on Friday night like everybody. But then they played well.
Putting it nicely.
Yeah.
I think Brody.
Yeah.
That was, wow.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. That was, and you could tell like his body language said it all. Like he was so frustrated, and you could tell he seemed disappointed with his game. He was the GOAT, and I say that not in a good way, on quite a few of those goals, basically blocking Freddie, and he couldn't see it at all. His positioning is just not.
I'm pretty sure he was a -3 there.
Yeah, his positioning is not great right now. So much better though last night, I would say overall.
Yeah, yeah, and then Bogosian and Dermott. I don't know. Bogosian, to me, he's slow. I mentioned this to you on the opening night. But
I mean, I hate to say it, but he looks like he's skating through molasses. Like I feel like how hard it is for him to just get the start. So maybe it's just going to take him a little time to get into that game shape. I don't know, but yeah, he's a big body, and I can't be easy to move that across the ice that fast. So. He's got speedy guys to have to keep up with. So,
yeah. And the thing though, too, I was expecting to actually just see a little bit more like Muzzin, let's say, like a little bit more physicality in the game. Like I haven't really noticed any hits going into the boards or anything like that. It's just, I don't know. They're okay. But again, he's a minus right now too. He's a minus, I think he's a -3 overall over the past 3 games. But yeah, so I don't know. Those two, I mean, they're new pairings, and it's hard. I guess everybody knows, like for defensive pairings, it's hard to, it takes a little bit. It's only 3 games. So hopefully they get better over the next week or so, because it's a short season. Everybody keeps saying that it's 56 games, right? So it's not like they have a lot of time to figure it out.
Well, but, we don't want to start sounding any alarm bells necessarily, but they do have to get things together pretty quickly. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Friday was the nightmare basically game. Like Marner, I mentioned to you, Sel, before, like he had, even though they were in the zone quite often, like that line was doing pretty good with Matthews and Thornton, but Marner had 0 shots, 0 goals, 0 assists on Friday night. And then another stat they said last night on the game was that, which kind of blew my mind, was that the top 4 wingers had no shots on Friday night on our team. the top four wingers on the top. So on the top,
that says it all. And because I was going to point out from that game that I was sort of disappointed with was Willie, because, Willie had such a great game the first game. Like, he was definitely the noticeable player that night. Like, he was firing on all cylinders. He looked great. He was doing, great on takeaways, great in the O zone. He was kind of everywhere. I mean, you're not going to necessarily notice him that much defensively because that's just not really his game. However, he seemed like focused and definitely in the game. Now, one of the things we said with him is that we want to see consistency from him game in, game out. And that's something that it was very obvious that he didn't have it on that second go round, right?
Yeah.
And he just was, kind of lazy on the forecheck, lazy in the plays, just kind of in the periphery, back to his typical not good Willie self that night. And that's something
last night
we can't have.
He was a little bit better last night. You didn't really notice him that much, but he was there at least, sort of thing. Whereas JT is like, he's motoring, like he's pretty good. He's 2 goals, 3 assists over the 5 or the 3 games.
He is a standout. He looks like he is back to his old self. So he's obviously getting more sleep because his son is older now. He is settled into the captaincy now. You can totally tell. And I don't know, there's something also about his face. He looks intense. So he's definitely, I think has, we talked about people coming in to the team with something to prove. I think he's somebody that is on our team that has something to prove, that is put that on himself this year, so he's going to be a model for the rest of the team to sort of follow, I think. Yeah.
And all right, what about the goaltending here? So do you want to start with this? I wrote something down here just so I don't go on about it.
Okay, well, I think by all accounts, let's just say that Freddie typically is a slow starter. So he didn't have the greatest 2 games on those first 2. So I think that is not a shock, not anything that anyone would say.
9 goals in 2 games is not good.
No. There's no way that you can sugarcoat that and spin that to making that sound good. Some things that I noticed is, especially when I was kind of watching all the goals and the saves also from the Ottawa game, is he seems to be very small and crouched in the net this year and a little bit too far back from he just doesn't look like his normal style. So I don't know what's happening there, but his timing seems to be kind of off. He seems to be going down a little bit too early, and he's very crouched, like not his usual tallish self. So I think that there's something with his timing that's just not quite there. And I'm hoping it's not his eyes aren't good, and that's why he's kind of like in this weird position. And
maybe he's crouched because he couldn't see anything
from in front of
because 5 of his own players are standing there like goalposts doing nothing.
That's true, but he was also doing it when people weren't in front of him too. So like, I don't really understand why he's making himself smaller. So I don't know if there's something they tried with techniques over the summer with him. But you know what? He's going to get back to his own self. I'm no doubt about that. Campbell had a great game for a backup. That's what we want. That's what we haven't gotten for years. So really, I don't think there's a debate about who's number 1 or who's number 2. I don't think that we're going that far with anything right now. But, Campbell looked pretty confident and comfortable. So, and I did not see that from Freddie, that looking comfortable. He didn't look comfortable, whereas Campbell looked comfortable. That's the one thing I would say about what I've observed over these 3 games, which let's, calm down, folks. It's only 3 games. So,
Well, they're running on Twitter. They're running Freddie out of town right now. Of
course, but
I think a lot of them didn't like him from last year as well. Like from last season. And whatever, his playoff performances obviously haven't been the greatest. Yeah.
And those are our most recent memories right now.
Yeah.
So because we're only 3 games in here, so that's less than what we played against Columbus. So,
but
we have to get a few games under us still.
Yeah. I'm thinking he's going to go in versus Winnipeg only because Keefe or the team, I don't know who explained it, but they went into this deep explanation as to how they were going to be using the goalies, assuming they had Aaron Dell there. Of course, we know Aaron Dell is on waivers, but they went into this big explanation to say that they didn't want Freddie to think about like having to go in as a backup, possibly. Let's just say if Campbell didn't do well last night versus Ottawa, he didn't dress at all. He had a good hard practice on Saturday. Sunday, today, they have the day off. And then Monday he'll play. And they said that that's what they were going to do. They had Dell as the backup in versus Ottawa on the Saturday night. So they said that's how they were going to handle it, as long as they had those 3 goalies there. But I don't know. So I'm thinking they'll stick to it for now. See how Freddie plays on tomorrow night versus Winnipeg. And then I don't know. I was thinking of it this morning, actually, that maybe it will be the case that he'll have to get used to playing almost the 50-50 split, like the way they do, like the Bruins and Pittsburgh did with their goalie situation. I was trying to think of a team out west, but I don't know. Vegas, Robin Lehner and Fleury. I don't know if they did more of. I think Lehner played more than Fleury quite a bit last year, but I'm not positive on that. But I know definitely Pittsburgh and Boston, they both had like a pretty close even, and Carolina as well. Like they all had a close 50-50 split. So maybe he's going to have to kind of change his mindset if that's what Keefe is leaning towards, or if Campbell pushes it that much where he plays that well over a long stretch of games. Because Campbell, I believe that was his 7th game last night as a Leaf. Mm-hmm. He only played 6 last year. And so I don't know. I think that, I just think it's always easy to blame the goalie, right, for everything. Right. That's the easiest thing to do. So we'll see how it goes. Anyways, we love Freddie anyway, so we're good with him. Mm-hmm. He'll be fine. He just has to think of that mentality, like he said in his preseason interview, that if he does well, the team does well, right? So that's all he needs to.
Right.
That's what he needs to think about, and that's it. Don't worry about anything else. All right, so we're just gonna get into some specific players here. Who's impressed you as a player the most? Let's just say in the 3 games.
Well, okay, so in the 3 games, I would have to say Tavares for sure. He's been great. Also, Matthews just got his first goal yesterday, but he's
been all over the place, though.
Yes,
yeah.
And he's been excellent. And that one post that he clanged, my God, that was loud.
Yeah.
So, definitely he looks awesome. Marner seems to be getting it together.
That he, for Matthews, I just wish that he doesn't get hit so much. I noticed last night too, as he was going to the bench, somebody gave him a shot in the back of the cross-checking thing, and I was like, no, we don't need that. But
with that though, that was something that part of what they're trying to address. So until somebody takes liabilities with him, and then someone comes back at them to protect him, that's going to keep happening, because everybody knows that you can take shots at him. He's not going to retaliate that much, not in a way where he's going to fight. Although I did see him stick up for himself in one instance the other night. So where he kind of pushed back. But people are going to keep running him so long as it's allowed. So
yeah. All right. Well, for me, it's the one of the players that you mentioned earlier. It's Kerfoot. Actually,
that's the other person I was just going to mention, but then we got a little tangent.
The fact that he got injured during their little mini training camps, or
he hasn't missed a beat either.
He just seems to have some spring in his step somehow. Like in the overtime versus Montreal, There was one play there where like he was like in the ozone like so fast. I was like, wow, who's that? Alexander Kerfoot? I was like, wow. I said that's good to see. But I don't know. Maybe it's because he has. Well, it's only 3 games, but it seems that Keefe is sticking him as the third line center. So that's center role or the set role for him as a third line center. And then he got the goal on Friday night, which was good for him too. And he just seems to be different a little bit in the first few games anyway. So hopefully that continues and that little injury or whatever he had, that it's all good. And then, that was my most impressive. And who did we expect more from anyone in the 3 games? Who would you say?
Obviously, I'm sure I'm not as hard on him as he's on himself. I was like hoping that Brody was not going to get off to such a bad start. But I don't think it's going to end up in Tyson Barrie territory.
No, that's for sure. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
But yeah, so he was, I was a little bit disappointed with him. That's probably the person that I would point to.
We both picked the 2 defensemen that have come in too. So I was Bogosian. I just thought that he looked slow from the first game all the way through, and the fact that he's just not, I don't know, he's not using his like body like to do any, like to hit anybody, or I haven't seen it anyways. I don't know. But it's the 3rd game over 3 games. Hope it can only get better, right? So, and it's not like he wasn't absolutely horrible, but I just thought that he would bring a little bit more energy, and he won the Stanley Cup last year with Tampa. Right. So,
truthfully though, to hit somebody, you got to catch them first. So it's very, although he played in the East all last year, so he should know that it's kind of a speed game out here. So,
so moving on to the taxi squad here. Unfortunately, so Keefe didn't use Bear Banoff very little. He used him. I don't know. He took one for the team. I know I think it was on Friday night. Definitely, he got this shot right in the. Looked like he got it right in the gut. I don't know. Right. It was pretty. He just went right out there and tried to block the shot. But so he shows some feistiness, but I don't think he's got to the trust level with Keefe yet. So they took him out and they put in Nick Robertson. And unfortunately that didn't end well for Nick. I don't know if did he have 1 or 2 shifts? Or
I think he had maybe more than that. Maybe
did he
2
have more than
or
that?
3. Yeah, I think it might have been on that 3rd one that he got crunched.
Okay, yeah, and he looks like a knee injury. So he's supposed to have an MRI today. And then from that, there was a trickle down effect that basically, in order for them to bring up anybody else, they needed to send down somebody else to the taxi squad. And of course they put having 17 skaters and the extra goalie, they chose to put Spezza on waivers today and Aaron Dell. And as the goalie thing, like they're saying, it's like a luxury that we had that 3rd goalie, that extra goalie. But so the Robertson injury basically forced the waiver move because they didn't have the extra forward on the roster. So they chose, they needed to get that extra forward. They had to put down, and with the salary cap space, it's very complicated. Let's just say that to explain. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that they definitely have, well, I guess going to Spezza, he'll have to clear waivers, and he's already said through his agent that he's going to retire if somebody actually picks him up or tries to pick him up. So we like Spezza. He's been good while he's here. He's obviously a local boy too. So and it's understandable that he doesn't want to move his family and everything like that. So hopefully that deters the other teams from actually trying to claim him. And then Dell, I think, is gone, basically. I think Edmonton if it gets down to Edmonton, because Chris Johnston actually tweeted like it has to go, like that player has to go through all the teams. There's a certain order to the teams. So it's not just like Edmonton just doesn't get first pick. It actually goes, I think, Ottawa. Actually it's Detroit. It goes from the bottom of the like the bottom team from last season.
Right.
And then all the way down. He has to go through all the teams. So yeah. So
and I guess because of the Mike Smith situation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. That's if it gets as far as Edmonton, then they're probably going to pick him up, I would think. But yeah, so so the taxi squad, anyways, we're definitely going to be using it, and we'll see what happens on Monday night versus Winnipeg. And yeah, what's up next for us now? Let's see what.
So the taxi squad obviously is going to be used a lot more over the next 56 games. So we're playing, like you said, against Winnipeg on Monday, and then we have a lot of games coming up against the Oilers and also a trip out west. So we're going to start to really pick up the pace as far as how many games we're playing in a week. I think we're going to see a lot of changes, and I think Leafs Nation is going to have to get used to a lot of adjustments, and we're going to have to try to not freak out over every little move.
Every change,
This is all a lot of thought, I think, has been put into how these things are going to be handled. I think a lot of these things are not going to be knee-jerk reactions either. So there's method to the madness. It's got to do with, the complement that they have on the ice, but also salary cap considerations and everything. So with also an eye on, being able to put the best team on the ice come playoff time. And we have, a very short time to be able to get that all together. So,
yeah. So we're playing Winnipeg tomorrow night. I expect Freddie to be back in goal. And technically, I mean, we really weren't sure if we were going to be playing Winnipeg because they did have some COVID issue where they canceled practice on Saturday. But apparently today they said everything was good and they are scheduled to fly here for the game for tomorrow night. So they're flying here today on the Sunday. And so we'll see. Patrick Laine is going to show up apparently. I don't know what was wrong. Something apparently he might have had an injury or something. But he is traveling with the team. And then, so that's always the good thing because obviously Patrick Laine was drafted number 2 after Austin Matthews was number 1. So there's always that little, maybe it's a rivalry for him. I don't know. For us, we know who's the better player. Yeah. And then,
funny that there's still a debate on that in some circles, but anyway.
Yeah. And then, and then there's Connor Hellebuck, obviously, who's the Vezina Trophy goaltender, so that'll be tough to get pucks by him. But it's definitely going to be one of the better teams we've faced so far in the Canadian division. And then we got the Oilers right after that.
Yeah, so we have 2 games versus the Oilers on the 20th and the 22nd. So back to back. That's going to be here at Scotiabank Arena. We have no Leafs on Saturday night this week. So, we're, I guess with this schedule, it's not necessarily a guarantee that we're going to have Leafs for a hockey night in Canada. We have the return of Tyson Barrie. So what do you think and what are you expecting there, Chris?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's only was with us one season, right? So he's been playing with Connor McDavid quite a bit on, like, he's been the D pairing, I guess, I think, with the when McDavid's been on. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And it didn't work out for him here. That's also, like, it just didn't, the expectations, I don't know, like I guess it was just, it just didn't work out. So,
no.
Yeah. So that's
also, it's always a treat, when we get to see Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
However, I kind of wish that Austin didn't let him come to Arizona because he's like really firing on all cylinders right now. So maybe AM34 can not invite him there for the summer to get his juices flowing.
Don't give them too many tips. Any more tips?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's always going to be, it's going to be a good showdown always between
I think
the two
Riley
of them.
is going to be a little bit more because he's always on the highlight reel now with that one goal
I
from
know.
last
Yeah,
season, right? So
be interesting to see if that puts a little burr in his bonnet for that, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we also play Edmonton again the following week on the 28th and 30th. So this is where we should start seeing some of those rivalries building up, because now we're seeing basically one team 4 times within the course of a week. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and then in between there, we played Calgary, the Flames in Calgary. Again, it's a 2-game series playing on Sunday the 24th. Note the start time is 4 p.m. on the Sunday, so we're going to have to get used to some of these earlier times, I guess, with the time zone difference, and also later, because I think on the one Edmonton game is at 10 o'clock here. Mm-hmm. So
overall, though, looking over the schedule, we actually have the majority of our starts are the 7 p.m. So, which I think some clubs are not too pleased about, but
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, but I mean, so far, I mean, we only played the 2-game style, I guess, the 2 games versus the Sens. Right. So I don't know. So far, it's all right. We'll see how it continues on. But a few things to note on when the teams are on the road when it comes to the COVID, like the strict protocols. I found this interesting. Everyone, well, I guess it's interesting that they've gone this strict. Basically, everybody has to wear a mask when they are together off the ice. They aren't allowed to leave the hotel on the road except to get like fresh air. So they can't like they can go outside the hotel and that's it. Basically, they can't really like go and discover the city or anything like that. Obviously, and nothing's open anyways. It probably across Canada, we all have the lockdown measures. So and then at dinner, they have assigned seats and they have to observe proper social distancing during the team dinners. Mm-hmm. So everything is very well laid out for them. I just find it interesting because like they're on the bench, sitting on the bench right beside each other. So
true.
I don't know. I just like for 3 hours, I don't know. I find it
well, I mean,
I don't know. It's better to be safe, obviously. But
what I would say to that though, is that when they're on the ice, they are in a bubble of sorts because it's all people connected to the team only. Right. But when they're somewhere eating, you're going to have some servers. You have people preparing food. There's other factors and variables. And honestly, it just takes one person to, be asymptomatic and carrying it or feeling a little under the weather, not noticing for things to just really explode in not a good way. So,
and obviously a lot of the teams are they're being very serious about the situation. Vancouver already canceled a practice once, like even though everything ended up being fine. Winnipeg canceled their practice or things. So they're being very careful with it, which is good to see, obviously, because we don't want. I mean, there's bound to be something. I mean, obviously Dallas now, I don't know when they're starting, but their season, because
they're not starting until the 22nd or something though.
Oh yeah. So, I mean, that was from before the season even started. So but we'll see how it goes on their first road trip. Because our next episode will be coming after that. And normally it's a time for the teammates to like build that team chemistry, which brings us to our next segment, where we actually got the chance again to be in a call with Brendan Shanahan, and he spoke about the team, and we had the opportunity to get his thoughts and vision for the team moving forward in the 7th year. I can't believe it's the 7th year of the Shanaplan. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Sil, what's the first thing there that we saw from this call?
Well, he basically gave his input about the team and what the team needed. And 2 things that he really noted were better leadership and physicality. So that's something that they obviously tried to address with the people they picked up over the summer. But, what are we seeing right now with regards to that coming to fruition? What do you think?
Yeah, I was actually surprised that they were looking the leadership part of it. I don't know. I was like, the physicality was obvious. Like that to me, they needed that. They just didn't have that person or that attitude to say like they're not going to be like nobody's going to like push them around, that sort of thing. But the leadership part, I found it interesting. But obviously they got a lot of it from getting somebody obviously like Joe Thornton, Wayne Simmons, and then I think Bogosian in a way just because of his experience with a Stanley Cup winner just last year, like being on that team. So
I kind of think that, because of the types of teams that Shanahan's been on, and even if we want to look back to, our teams from like the 2000s, you had Mats, who was kind of a quiet leader, which is like similar to JT, but they brought in other people like Nieuwendyk for a time, Gary Roberts, they had Ty Domi, different types of voices, different types of personalities, somebody that is going to be speaking up more because Tavares, it's not really his style. So maybe they needed, not necessarily saying that they didn't have, good leaders to this point, but they just needed some different types of voices also and more varied experience,
Yeah. And I think too, with our three young stars in Nylander, Matthews, and Marner, I think they might need a little bit more direction or like to say, because obviously we haven't had the greatest experiences in the playoffs over these last few years. And it's only their first going into their fifth season for Austin Matthews. Yeah. And I think with them, maybe it might help JT, like you're saying, to because nowadays, I guess teams, it's the captain is he's not the one and only person like to be the leader on the team, right? Like there's like a group surrounding him that leads the team. So yeah, so Shanahan also spoke about how acquiring players that are from Southern Ontario brings an intangible to the team. So growing up, like he said, you watching the Leafs, or you have your favorite player, whether it was Wendell Clark, Daryl Sittler, Doug Gilmour. For him, like his favorite player is Daryl Sittler. So for him, he's like, it just makes a difference. Let's say when you put that jersey on for the first time and you think, wow, like Daryl Sittler was my favorite player, number 27, and I'm putting that jersey on now. Or whether it was Wendell Clark, right, or Doug Gilmour, like he said, you can have elite talent to win, but you also need the intangibles as part of your lineup. So yeah, I think it's a huge difference. We talked about in our first episode of the year with Wayne Simmons looking at himself in the glass, right? Like saying, wow, I look good in blue and white, right? So those kinds of things, I think it gives that energy. I mean, Marner understands it. Obviously he's from here, but people like Willie and Austin Matthews and Ilya Mikheyev, let's say a Russian player, and Kerfoot, it basically just instills it more for them as to what it is to be a Maple Leaf. That's how
right. So they're kind of being, in a way, they're kind of being taught by these guys and their reverence, what it really means to wear the blue and white. Yeah, definitely. I have to agree. But then, you kind of wonder, how come they're, this whole draft, did we even have any Southern Ontario born players drafted? Like not a one. So
yeah. That's true. That's true. Yeah. I don't know. That's something between him and Dubas, right? That's
exactly
when it comes to the Shanaplan, they have to figure it out. But they obviously brought in those couple players that Morgan Riley, I think, is one of the big, like he's from Vancouver area, but I think he's like he grew up a Leaf fan as well, right? But I just think being that, and I think that's what Shanahan is obviously, by what he said, he believes it as well, that having those players from Southern Ontario, it just adds something in the dressing room to to, I guess, stabilize the dressing room in a way that you got to keep yourself level headed here in Toronto too, right? Because it's a big thing. I mean, like we see everybody's going crazy about Jason Spezza being on waivers on Sunday in January, sort of thing, right? But I don't know. You gotta have people that are excited about it, but can also show that leadership to say that they can tone things down as well and keep everything in perspective, like Jumbo Joe with his interview last night. I had a good laugh at that.
Well, then again, in a sense, though, I think that's part of the reason why maybe they brought in some older guys that have the connection with, Leafs, because let's face it, anybody who is of a younger generation, they are not as attached to a successful Leaf team. So the farther we get away from that, the less kids coming up are going to have that connection. So until we start creating that more again, having people in the fold that, have those memories is going to be important. So
yeah. And then he also talked about this power of positive thinking. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like ideas like expect good things to happen. And like imagine good things will happen and it will happen. And that kind of thing, I think, is more about these playoff series losses that we've had to Boston. I think he's in the background. He's kind of giving us the idea, like, all these young players have all they've done, and they haven't won a playoff series in 16, 17 years, right? So they don't know how it feels to win in those big moments. So that power of positive thinking, I think, will go a long way. I think, and Jumbo Joe obviously is putting in his 2 cents. He always seems to be positive as being in the media, anyways. And and then he also said for himself, Shanahan, that he won't quit. He's passionate about the team and the job of being president, and he believes we'll do it in Toronto. And that was one comment I thought to myself, that's sort of like Masai Ujiri, I guess, with the Raptors with his comments. So I don't know, I didn't that was interesting of him to say. And then the most interesting quote I thought from him was about Mitch Marner. He was asked about several different players and former coaches as well, but he asked about Mitch Marner, and he said he brings energy and brightness to the ice every day. He's accomplished the role of playing the full game, both defensive and offensive. He cares, and Shanahan hopes that he plays his entire career here, and no doubt he will have a statue outside the arena.
Wow.
When that last part was the part that I was like, I was kind of shocked a little bit to actually say that, but for me, that just means Mitch isn't really going anywhere.
It doesn't sound like it.
From the sounds of it. Yeah.
He's going to have to do something pretty bad and definitely not go on the trajectory that's expected of him for him to not be here. But, obviously that's not entirely in the team's control. He may decide that he wants to go somewhere else. But you know what? I always say that, the people connected with this team, no matter how much Leafs Nation thinks they're in the know, they know things that we don't know, obviously. So he knows things about Mitch that we don't know, that we don't see. He has a personal relationship with him. He knows what, he feels strongly about. So yeah, I think that, obviously we know the sky's the limit for someone who has the talent that he has, and he's got a unique skill set that not everyone has too. So I would love to see that. I'd love to see more than one guy on this team have a statue. I guess it's going to take a few Stanley Cups maybe maybe not even, because look, we've got guys on that bench out there in front of Scotiabank Arena who haven't won a thing, and they're revered. So
yeah, that's true.
So we are lucky to have the opportunity to be on a call with the Leafs president, obviously. There was no media on this call. And it's really special for us fans to be there. And it's something that we obviously love to share with you, our listeners. So
yeah, so that's what we have for you in this, our first episode mid-month. Because we're doing twice monthly now, episodes of the podcast, and we're so happy to bring it to you. And we'd appreciate it if you could take a bit of time to give our podcast a review on whatever app you listen or you use to listen to us. And if you don't already, you can follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Our handle is at LTL1917, and we'll keep you informed on what's going on with our Leafs.
So we hope you enjoyed our show, and to help us continue with it, please buy us a coffee. Go to ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com, and you can make a donation using our handle LTL1917. You can find the link on our Buzzsprout website. We also love to hear from you. So if you have any feedback or any ideas you would like us to talk about on future shows, you can reach us at Ladies Talkin' Leafs at LADIESTALKINLEAFs at gmail.com to give us feedback. This is the last thing. We'd like to thank our healthcare workers for everything they do. Everybody stay safe and well.
Talk to you soon. Go Leafs, go.